Hold on one second. All right, good evening. This is Wesley Fairley, and I'm here to present the professional development on digital literacy and my takeaways from chapter two and what I thought were three of the most important takeaways um, from that chapter. And so, starting off with the first big takeaway I had is the section on thinking through the text, and kind of a trend that you'll see through my selections was that I my big takeaways um, from the chapter were things that I thought were very practical that I felt like you could apply, especially in the science classroom on day one. And so the first thing that I've got here is thinking through text. And so one of the big problems that we have in the secondary science classroom, especially for somebody who teaches a lot of biology related classes, is there's a lot of technical jargon, there's a lot of vocabulary involved, and students need to process this information. I teach an anatomy course, um, and there's a lot of vocab involved in that, and there's a lot of different moving parts and things like that. And so, think sheets and graphic organizers are huge tools to help students kind of lay out and process their thinking as they access these different digital, this technical jargon, maybe, and digital things like that. Um, Scientific texts, especially today in the 21st century in 2025, come in many different forms. It could be a website. Nat Geo is an easy example, of Discovery, things like that. Journal articles, teaching upper level science classes. We do look at digital journals, scientific journals, teaching students to access those because those are higher order things, and they'll be there are things that they'll see more when they move into higher education. Ebooks and things like that. And students just need to know how to process those things. And so thinking through text is a big thing, and how I apply it in my classroom and how I have in the past, and how this chapter has kind of shown that you can do this and apply it in the classroom is through stop and jot questions. Stop and jot questions are a huge valuable tool. I use them in my physics course as we read through texts in in my physics course, these really complex things about how the universe works. It sets up really thoughtful questions for them to answer to kind of stop and process what they're reading. It's a very active way of doing it. Question chart, different think charts like what I learned. And I wonder prompt. I wonder this about this new thing that I just looked at. And then specific content questions, which is something I've utilized in my physics course. Okay. So, and then there's a kind of shows all the different technical jargon that we could see in a science class. The second um, takeaway, big thing that I identified in this chapter was the power of infographics. It was something that came up time and time again through the different strategies of practicing digital literacy was analyzing them and students creating them and things like that. And so infographics are a highly visual method of processing and presenting information. I use them in in the classroom, showing students different things. There's all in science, and there's all sorts of great infographics. Students, by evaluating these infographics and annotating them and things like that, students can increase digital literacy. And then students can apply their learning using infographics. They can create their own via websites like Canva. Canva's awesome tool. I know that uh, Dr. Childs uses it. I use it in my classroom. I love Canva. All my students typically have accounts. It's an excellent method to help them kind of summarize what they've learned in a digital format, and and then Canva's got all sorts of templates and things like that. And there's other websites as well, but Canva's the one that comes to mind for me. Um, and it allows them to kind of channel their creative energy. It lets them creativity flow as and then they're building digital literacy skills as they go and content skills and things like that. And then finally, the last big takeaway, and to me, one of the biggest takeaways I had from this chapter was that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so it's an old saying, right? But I think it's very true. Pictures and images in today's day and age are a part of literacy and digital literacy. Images are everywhere, right? On the internet. You open up, just real simple, you open up Facebook. And first thing that's going to pop up is a picture. And being able to decipher the context of the picture, being able to understand what the picture is trying to say, whether or not maybe it's AI generated. That's become a big issue, especially on the social media side of things. Whether it's how it's framing something, what might the bias be, things like that. Um, Students need to be able to read an image in today's day and age. It's something they need to know. Maybe not something that was as important when I was in school, or even people older than me. But students need to be able to read an image in today's world and analyze the context and know what the message is trying to convey and why it might be trying to convey that message. Students can create charts. I pulled the chart from the textbook itself there. I really like this. It's a very visual way of a student laying out how they read images. And so, kind of step by step on what they look at. And so, as you can see, they study the background to figure out where the story takes place. They look at faces and clothing, maybe that tells you, and this is different students listing different things they saw. And maybe the faces and clothing tell you maybe about a time period in a history class or the trends that were present then, and um, get look for little details, slowing down and analyzing the good stuff, all sorts of things. So students need strategies to read an image, answering prompts on the image, questions on the image, discussing as a group, whole group discussion on how they analyze images. Students can use images in their work, of course. This is a great example, right? In this professional development, every slide's got a picture, right? And it kind of adds something, adds some context, adds some some ideas and content to the presentation, right? Versus if there were no pictures on this presentation. And so students can use the images to help convey their ideas or the content and help them better understand it. So overall, these were three things I took away from this chapter. And thank you so much. Let me see. And